Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here and 4Ks, and we also talk about Blu-ray retailers, folks that we love here that you can rely on to be getting some of the newest, best boutique label releases, like our good friends at Diabolik DVD, which is an wonderful website and incredible resource for collectors. And I know they've been around so long that there probably aren't too many of you out there who haven't at least heard of them if you aren't already using their wonderful website to shop for discs. But I do like to go through, because there's so much coming out all the time, I like to go through what I've been picking up from Diabolik because they have such a great selection. It's always a wide range of stuff. So let's start with this new 4K of Blue Sunshine. This is really a special, crazy movie about acid freakout. It starts off as a great party, just 8 people in a secluded lodge. One of the guests suddenly goes on a shockingly violent, murderous rampage. There's something wrong with his hair and pure evil in his eyes. What he does to the 3 of the girls is too hideous to describe. Falsely accused of the brutal killings, Jerry Zipkin, Zalman King, goes on the run. More bizarre murders occur, and while trying to clear his name, Jerry discovers the shocking truth that people losing their hair and turning into violent psychopaths may be connected to a drug each killer took about a decade before, a drug known as Blue Sunshine. Synapse Films, always great, by the way, and their 4Ks. If it's a movie you're even remotely interested in, you're going to want to pick it up from Synapse because they take a great deal of time and care with their releases, and so I've never been dissatisfied with the Synapse release. Like, they really knock it out of the park every time. Proud to present Jeff Lieberman's 1977 cult classic horror film Blue Sunshine in an all-new 4K restoration presented in Dolby Vision HDR10 compatible and loaded with hours of supplemental material. This 3-disc set contains a 4K UHD Blu-ray, a Blu-ray, and a CD soundtrack album, and is limited to 4,000 copies. Exclusive limited edition clipboard case. Now that's this sort of really cool slip box case that you get with it. And then it has a nice slip case on it, and then the actual disc itself, and the 3 discs within, and a booklet, Tripping on Sunshine by Jeff Lieberman, from the book Day of the Living Me, Adventures of a Subversive Cult Filmmaker from the Golden Age. So that's included, plus a poster. I mean, they really just go all out. I love that about Synapse. So this one I haven't had a chance to check out yet, but like I said, I've never been disappointed. So it's just a matter of when do I watch this. But I know that it's going to be great. And I also think it's fun when Synapse kind of doesn't even tell you. Like, maybe you heard of rumblings they were working on something, but then they're just suddenly like, surprise, buy it now. And of course, I always keep like a little tiny bit of money sort of aside for this kind of surprise announcement, because it's something that I'm like, well, I got to get that, So very excited to get Blue Sunshine on 4K. Then we have some stuff from Shout Factory. We have the 4K UHD and Blu-ray of UHF, Weird Al Yankovic's movie from '89, I want to say. Super fun, spoofy comedy that was a big deal to me when I was a teenager. A movie that, through its soundtrack, I sort of discovered Weird Al. It was like a confluence of discovering him and this movie right around the same time, and discovering that, and I've talked about this before, but that music had lyrics and that you could do silly things with the lyrics if you wanted to and change the full identity of the song despite the melody being the same. And it sort of changed my mentality about lyrics in general. It made them more important. It made them more interesting. It made me pay attention to them more, because it was suddenly like, oh, I'm hearing the same music, but this totally is not the same song, because he would do all his parodies and things. But anyway, this one's super fun, goofy, Lots of fun parodies contained within. New 4K scanner of the original 35 camera negative. Audio commentary with Weird Al and director Jay Levy. That's on the 4K. And then the Blu-ray also has that new scan. Retrospective panel from San Diego Comic-Con 2014. Commentary. Deleted scenes, behind the scenes footage, music video, production stills, Easter eggs. But just a classic of its kind, just one of those movies that has always been a favorite of mine, a nostalgic fave, if you will. Some of the jokes land, some don't, but I just love Weird Al and actually love when he acts in movies. I don't know. I find that very intriguing. Next up, okay. So this is Who's That Girl? This is starring Griffin Dunne and Madonna. And I know it was a bit maligned at the time of its release and maybe still is. I like it. I think it's fun. I think part of that goes back to my love of screwball comedies and my love of Howard Hawks screwball comedies and Bringing Up Baby, which this is a very direct, that's a very direct influence on this film. It's about a sort of uptight guy. He's not a archaeologist. I can't remember what Cary Grant, I know he's got the bones and stuff, but I think he's like an accountant or something. What does it even say? For years of unjust jail time haven't dampened the spirits of determination of Nikki Finn. The spunky parolee sets out to clear her name and sets the Big Apple spinning in deliriously funny ways. Madonna is sexy and funny, very engaging. Oh, that's Vincent Canby. Let's see here. Terrific soundtrack. Causing a Commotion, Look of Love, Can't Stop, and the title song. Griffin Dunne co-stars an uptight, soon-to-wed attorney, that's right, whose mild lifestyle swerves into the path of uproarious oncoming traffic courtesy of Nikki. This frisky caper proves screwball comedy is alive and swell. This is directed by James Foley, who I'm a big fan of. Did things like At Close Range and, Glengarry Glen Ross, and he's just a really sharp director. Didn't do a ton of comedy, and so I like it when directors that don't do comedy do it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This works for me. New 2K scanner of the 35 interpositive. New audio commentary by film historian Russell Dieball. I'm a fan of Russell Dieball. He's done some other Shout Factory commentaries that I've dug, and I'm glad to see him on here. I'm looking forward to hearing that. But yeah, this is just a goofy, almost forgotten 80s comedy. I think I've also talked about the fact that when I used to work at the video store in college, they were nice enough to give me a little bit of free reign to create these sections. So I did, cult section. I made sure and, had a very large staff pick section because I think that's absolutely essential to any video store or bookstore or wherever you have staff that can recommend things. I think that's one of my favorite things to look at as soon as I go into a video store or a bookstore are there staff picks, or a record store, what are people into? So the other thing I did was I made I think I said cult section and then an 80s section, because 80s at the time, we were in the 90s, and so it was still fresh but still nostalgic. So I was digging up anything and everything I could find in the store that was sort of being rented less, and finding a way to put it into this category so that maybe somebody would be like, oh, I feel like an 80s movie tonight. What could I watch? Oh, Who's That Girl? I've never even heard of that. Madonna? What? And so this was the kind of movie that I would like to dig out on VHS and put into that section. But it has, been a bit forgotten. And I think Madonna is a good actor. Like, I think she has turned in some really solid performances. I think what she's doing here will annoy some people. It's kind of a cutesy Betty Boopy kind of voice. In fact, there's an animated opening that sort of almost portrays her as a Betty Boop type character, but it's a little more than that, and I think it's funny. And again, it won't be funny to everybody, but I was excited to see this get a Blu-ray release. So Who's That Girl on Blu-ray finally from Shout. Here's another big one from me. This is on 4K, Joe Dante's Matinee. And this is, I'm pretty sure I've heard him say it a few times, his favorite film that he made, or one of his favorites, definitely. And I think it's one of his best. And it's one of those movies that is, fairly uncut Joe. I mean, although he didn't write the script, obviously, it just has so much Dante imbued in it in terms of the. Well, I mean, okay, so what how do we? John Goodman is at his uproarious best as the William Castle-inspired movie promoter Lawrence Woolsey, who brings his unique blend of flashy showmanship to the unsuspecting residents of Key West, Florida. It's 1962, and 15-year-old fan Gene Loomis, Simon Fenton, who's British and who you would never know that based on this role, can't wait for the arrival of Woolsey, who is in town to promote his latest offering of Atomic Power Gone Berserk, Ment. But the absurd vision of Woolsey's tale takes a sudden urgency as the Cuban Missile Crisis places the real threat of atomic horror just 90 miles off the coast. With the help of Woolsey's leading lady, Ruth Kathy Moriarty, the Master Showman gives Key West a premiere they'll never forget. Screenplay by Charlie Haas, who worked on things like The River's Edge and just a good screenwriter. This is a Renfield production. That's Joe Dante's production company. And I want to say Joe said something like this is the only... I'm going to misquote this, but I think he said it's the only Renfield production. Like maybe Renfield solo production or something. Renfield, of course, the character from the movie Dracula. But I've always loved that Joe named his company after that. But yeah, it's just such a neat movie in terms of the heart that it has, but also in terms of the comedy and the, it's like his Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm going to use that metaphor. I have been, since Quentin made that movie, for the sort of throwback film that is very personal to the filmmaker. Obviously, this film comes out before Quentin's film, but the idea is the same in that it's a Joe Dante flashing back to a period when he was a kid. He went through the Cuban Missile Crisis. He went to the movies. He loved William Castle and all this. And I think it's, like I said, it's a very personal film and one that I think Universal maybe had a little trouble figuring out what to do with and didn't fully market the way they could have, or maybe it was just a movie that's meant to find its audience on video later. It's a hard movie to sell because it's older, but it has found its cult, and it is a movie that's beloved and, has a good supporting cast, including people like Dick Miller, who's in every Joe Dante movie. Dick Miller and John Sayles play like these agitators who are in town to stir things up about this Schlockmeister's movies and the general state of cinema, hurting children. It's a bad influence kind of thing. And they're super fun. There's some other great, Robert Picardo runs the theater. He's also a Joe Dante regular. I want to say Archie Hahn is in here too. All his regulars are in here. But John Goodman really does a great job as Lawrence Woolsey, this bigger than life movie promoter. They do have gimmicks like, the one that he used for the Tingler, which is like wiring the seats to zap people at certain times. So it's the showmanship. I think they have like you sign the life insurance policy before you go in, or it's combining a bunch of Castle's gimmicks. And it's just a loving tribute to him and Atomic, 50s movies, which is stuff that Joe Dante grew up on. So it's just a beautiful love letter and a movie that I think still needs maybe just a little bit more love, even though it is something that people are aware of and like. If you love Gremlins and you love Joe Dante, you owe it to yourself to watch one of his best movies. I think for me, The Burbs and this are his best films for my enjoyment, and I'm so happy to see this get a 4K. I really hope The Burbs gets a 4K too. Please, please, please. I hope that's coming. Anyway, great movie. Has new 4K restoration from the original camera negative, supervised and approved by Dante, Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. Audio commentary with film critics Drew McWeeny and Eric Vespi. I think that's brand new for this release, so that's cool. That's all in the 4K. The Blu-ray has that restoration, the commentary, new interview with actress Kelly Martin. This has got a second Blu-ray, so it's actually, I think, a 3-disc set. Is that right? No. Sorry. No, it's just 2. I'm sorry. It's disc 2, Blu-ray continued. I'm a dumbass. So the second disc has more stuff, including new interview with actor David Clennon, interviews with Dante, editor Marshall Harvey, cinematographer John Hora, Mant performer Mark McCracken, and Mant designer Jim McPherson, Paranoia and Ant Vision featurette, vintage making of featurette, behind the scenes footage, deleted scene, and extended scenes. I mean, they even go so far as to do a Disney parody in this movie, which I think is super funny. Because Disney movies were big around this time, live action Disney movies, which I'm actually a big fan of. I watched a lot of those on VHS as a kid. The one they do in this movie is called the Shook Up Shopping Cart, all about like a haunted shopping cart that's but haunted by somebody's mom, or it's like My Mother the Car, but a shopping cart. I don't know. Super goofy. They show a scene from it in the movie. It's got Naomi Watts in it. It's silly. But I love this movie. High recommend, one of my favorite releases of the year so far. Speaking of which, we also have on 4K, this is a UK import. This is Arrow's 4K of Bruce Robinson's film Withnail and I, which is one of the great comedies of the 1980s and just a seminal cult film. And you can see why when you watch it. About two out-of-work actors. Let's see here. Camden Town, the arse end of the 60s, two struggling unemployed actors decide some respite is in order, so to depart from their miserable flat for a week in the Lake District, one that will involve rain, booze, minimal supplies, a randy bull, and even randier Uncle Monty. Based on the real-life experiences of former actor turned writer-director Bruce Robinson, Withnail and I has become one of British cinema's most fondly remembered comedies, a cult film in the truest sense that has become a cult classic, perfectly cast with career-defining roles for Richard E. Grant, Paul McGann, Richard Griffiths, and Ralph Brown, and crammed with irresistibly quotable dialogue. Booze, I demand some booze, Withnail and I is a sheer delight, even on the umpteenth viewing. Agreed, it is. Brand new 4K restoration from the original negative by Arrow Films, supervised by director of photography Peter Hannon. Let's see, so Ultravision HD Blu-ray, presented in Dolby Vision HDR 10 compatible, lossless audio, optional English subtitled, audio commentary by writer-director Bruce Robinson, audio commentary by critic and film writer Ken Jackson, author of the BFI modern classic on Withnail and I. Those are great little books, by the way, if you haven't seen those. Very small books, almost like a long essay, but really great. I have a bunch of them on some of my favorite movies. Look up BFI Classics on eBay or Amazon and see what movies come up. It's great. All four original Withnail and I weekend documentaries, first screened on Channel 4 in 1999, including The Peculiar Memories of Bruce Robinson, which looks at the director's career, Withnail and Us, which focuses on the film's making, and two shorter documentaries, I Demand to Have Some Booze, and Withnail on the Pier, interview with production designer Michael Pickwood, an appreciation of Withnail and I by Sam Bain, co-creator of Peep Show and Fresh Meat, archival interview with Bruce Robinson, trailer, limited edition artwork. This has got a nice hardbox slipcase and a book, like a thin book. A limited edition perfect bound book featuring writing on the film by Vic Pratt, Anthony Neild, Martin Jones, Neil Mitchell, and Mike Sutton. But this is a big favorite of mine and has been since my video store days, and I can't wait to dig into that set. I've gotten it, but I've not had a chance to dig in. Moving a little more quickly now, we also have Mute Witness in 4K from Arrow, a great thriller that has finally sort of found some sort of purchase in fandom, and getting this release will definitely help elevate it. I know my podcast partner Albert Kane is a huge fan. Has been promoted this for years. Directing Anthony Waller, The Piper, an American Werewolf in Paris, combines cat and mouse suspense with classic intrigue and Mute Witness, an updated take on the Hitchcockian thriller in which the only witness to a brutal crime can neither speak nor cry out in terror. Billy Hughes, Marina Sedina, is a mute special effects artist working on the low-budget American slasher movie being shot in Russia. Accidentally locked in the studio late one night, she stumbles upon two men shooting what appears to be a snuff film. Having borne witness to their victims' final moments, Billy desperately flees, but this is the start of the protracted night of terror, drawing her and her friends into a tangled web of intrigue involving the KGB, Moscow police, and mysterious crime kingpin known as the Reaper. Filmed on location in Moscow and co-starring Faye Ripley and Evan Richards, Mute Witness is an unpredictable, nerve-shredding tense viewing experience, now fully restored in 4K and presented alongside a host of new recently unearthed bonus material. There has never been a better opportunity to discover or rediscover this 90s gem of thriller cinema. 4K restoration by director Anthony Waller. 4K Blu-ray presented in HDR10. Restored original lossless soundtrack. Subtitles. Brand new audio commentary by writer-director Anthony Waller. Brand new audio commentary with production designer Matthias Kammermeyer and composer Wilbert Hirsch. Moderated by critic Lee Gambin, R.I.P. The Silent Death, the brand new visual essay by author and critic Alexandra Heller-Nicholas, examining the Mutant Witness and its relationship with snuff films. Wizard Behind the Curtain, a brand new visual essay by author and critic Chris Alexander, exploring the phenomenon of the film within a film. Original snuff movie presentation produced to generate interest from investors and distributors, featuring interviews with Anthony Waller and members of the creative team. Original scouting footage, original footage with Alec Guinness, filmed a decade prior to the rest of Mute Witness. I forgot that he's in this, yeah. Versatile sleeve, newly commissioned artwork. Illustrated collector's booklet featuring new writing on the film by Michelle Kisner. So a really great release of a gem from Arrow. Then we have a 4K of, this is Mario Bava's film Black Sunday, La Machera del Demonio, as it's known in this 4K cult release. I believe that's the label. I think they're from Italy. And all this is in Italian. I can't remember what features it has, but it has both a 4K and a Blu-ray, but oh, no, it's not all region. The Blu-ray is actually region B, but the 4K, of course, all region. But I've been waiting for this to get a 4K for a long time. It's one of Mario Bava's most stylish and best films, and 4K Cult has been a label that Jesse at Diabolik has been stocking, and I trust Jesse. Like, if Jesse's stocking it, he knows that it's of good quality, and he knows that he'll get complaints if it's not, so he's, not going to stock something that he doesn't stand behind. And this looks very good. The 4K transfer looks really neat. The grains detail is really wonderful, and the black and white looks great in 4K. I'm sure it'll get another more official 4K from somebody like Arrow or Kino at some point, but I don't know. You never know with these films when it's going to happen. And the stateside Blu-ray, I feel like, went out of print at some point, and so this movie maybe feels like it's in a weird place, so I don't know. But anyway, I'm a sucker. I bought it. I think it's out of stock now, but you may be able to get on the list to get it when it comes back. Next up, we have a great Sean Connery thriller called Ransom, also known as The Terrorists, from the early 70s. I want to say 74. And it's just sort of a great sort of standoff, a little Die Hard 2-ish, because it's an airport thing, ultimately. But a great Connery role. Sean Connery delivers another powerhouse performance as Nils Talvik, the tough-as-nails security chief, battling to thwart the deadly plans of a terrorist leader, played to sinister perfection by a young Ian McShane, beautifully photographed by Oscar-winning Swedish cinematographer Sven Nykvist. It's a great-looking movie, and complemented by Jerry Goldsmith's memorably haunting score. Ransom takes us through a tightly plotted, relentless race against time. Following a series of bomb attacks in London, a group of terrorists seized the British ambassador to the fictitious state of Scandinavia. They made up the country for this. With the ambassador now a hostage in his residence, another group of hijacks an airliner at the capital's airport, announcing that the passengers will not be freed until their demands are met. Colonel Nils Talvik, Scandinavia's resourceful and ruthless head of security, seeks to take on uncompromising stance against the terrorists, yet his attempts meet resistance from unknown forces at every turn. This is listed as Region B. I haven't tested it yet, but I think I remember the umbrellas usually being all region. I'm blanking now if that's true or not. It has a feature-length audio commentary with Lee Pfeiffer, editor of Cinema Retro Magazine, along with film historians Paul Scrabo and Tony Latino. Wilderness Period, Kim Newman on Sean Connery. I love Kim Newman. I love anything he has to say about anything, really. Sean Connery 70s trailer reel, alternate title sequence. This is a nice release of this one. This had an out-of-print Blu-ray from Anchor Bay under the title The Terrorist, which I had bought, but happy to get an upgrade. I don't know that the scan is upgraded, but it seems like a nice release from Umbrella. And lastly, I've got a couple interesting ones from the fine folks at Deaf Crocodile, who now are partnered with Diabolik. And this is a beautiful looking release for a film called The Savage Hunt of Kingstock. And this sounds really intriguing to me. This is one I haven't had a chance to check out yet, but I'm very curious about. Part folk horror, part supernatural mystery. Kingstock is a melancholy, chilling mixture of Terry Gilliam, Italian Gothic horror, 1960s Hammer films, and The Wicker Man, and a major rediscovery for genre fans. Based on the novel by Belarusian writer Volodymyr Karatsevich, the long unavailable Kingstock has recently been restored from the original film elements in its 126-minute director's cut by Deaf Crocodile and Seagull Films for its first ever U.S. release in Russian with English subtitles. Special features include brand new restoration of the director's cut, as mentioned, new commentary tracks by Stephen R. Bissett and Mike White, The Wild Wild Hunt of Kingstock, a new video essay by Evan Chester, video introduction by filmmaker and author Kayla Janice, Blu-ray authoring by David Mackenzie and Fidelity in Motion, new art by Meth Morris, QR code to access special features for deaf and hard of hearing. Has a really nice rigid slipcase and a 60-page book with new essays by Walter Chow and Peter Wahlberg. So this is the really nice slipcase that it comes in with the J card. And then we have the actual disc and this book, which is significant. It's a very significant book. I'm just going to read the opening of the essay by Walter Chow. It's dark outside and you've been traveling all day through the marsh, a forest that's tangle of shadows in the daytime. You can't imagine what it's like now when the moon is down. You're tired. You're desperately tired. The table you could eat at could seat an army, but it's just you and the mistress of this sprawling estate. She's so beautiful, and you don't want to listen to that voice inside your head that says something's wrong. When you tell her you're an anthologist interested in the legends of this area, she becomes angry. Why would anyone study all that gloom and collected in the minds of savages? When you look at her again, furtive in the way you look at a beautiful woman because you don't want her to know how you want to stare, but she already knows. She's gone, slipped through one of a dozen hidden panels like smoke through the crack of a window. How long has it been? Your arms are heavy and your eyelids droop. You're in a nightmare. Very interesting opening to that essay. But yeah, beautiful book with, full color, matte finish. Just really nice. Excellent presentation. This is a Region A Blu-ray of the movie. And yeah, Deaf Crocodile really still doing what they do, which is making great discs. So very excited to check that one out. A beautiful presentation of that movie. And then lastly, we have one here called Russian and L Milla. And Russian and L Milla, 1972, 145 minutes. The final film from Russian fantasy master Alexander Puchko. A Russian and L Milla was a glorious and magical summation of a career, a 2.5-hour greatest hits package filled with the sweeping lyricism, bejeweled visual effects, and mythic storytelling that put him on par with Walt Disney, Ray Harryhausen, and Mario Bava. Based on the epic fairy tale written in 1820 by Alexander Pushkin, Pushkin had previously been adapted. Puchko had previously adapted Pushkin's tale of Tsar Sultan, and half-jokingly said they were related. The film opens with the seemingly joyous marriage of Bogatyr, warrior Ruslan, and to L Milla, the daughter of Prince Vladimir. Like his earlier Ilya Muromets, the action of the film is set during the legendary era of the Kievan Rus culture that predated both modern Ukraine and Russia. On their wedding night, Ludmilla is spirited away by the long bearded wizard Choromer and taken to his sinister palace where she's held prisoner. On their epic quest to rescue her, Ruslan and his three rivals encounter some of Putzko's most unforgettable imagery: a giant's monstrous decapitated head slumbering on an open plain, magic rings and stone warriors, sorcery and sacrifice, all in the hope of reuniting lost lovers. Newly restored by Most Film for the release by Deaf Crocodile and Siegel Films in Russian with English subtitles. Bonus features new 4K restoration from the original camera negative and sound elements by Most Film, new commentary track by comics artist, film historian, and author Stephen R. Bissett, new essay by film historian and professor Peter Ralsberg, Alexander in Wonderland, folklore and fantasy in the films of Alexander Putzko, new video essay by film critic Walter Chow, and Blu-ray authoring by David Mackenzie of Fidelity in Motion, new art by Tony Stella. Beautiful Tony Stella cover for that one. So this is also Region A. So you can get these through Diabolik. All this stuff is available there. And it's a great website and just an absolute must. If you're a collector of boutique Blu-rays or just getting started collecting, I really recommend following them on their socials and checking their website every week to see which new releases they've added, maybe which imports they've added. They have tons of great imports and media books and things that are expensive to import that they really do help alleviate the cost of. I've gotten a lot of imports. In fact, I mostly get my imports through them because they tend to be cheaper. They have a very reasonable shipping rate. They ship things well and package them well, so I've never, knock wood, had anything damaged that was shipped to me from them. I just love them. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.